these big institutions out there, be it the federal government, be it the UN or the WHO or World Economic Forum, one of the reasons they have so much power is that they've got access to the funny money from the central banks. So if the system were to collapse, the monetary system were to collapse, they wouldn't have the funding anymore. And I think that's great. And that's why I keep telling people that, yes, you need to get out of the system.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for January 29th through February 5th, 2024, while supplies last. This week we have silver Valcambi or Asahi 100-ounce bars at just $1.39 over spot per ounce. We also feature pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $89 over melt and $139 over melt respectively. Next, backdated 1-ounce silver maples are at $3.75 over spot with a minimum order of 50. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Mario Innecco from the Innecco64 YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mario.
You're welcome, Elijah, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's great to have you today. I did want to ask you first about the banking system. Now, obviously, last year, we were tracking this with you when we saw multiple banks collapse, the second, third, and fourth largest bank in the U.S. ever to collapse, falling quite significantly here in the last few days. Your perspective on what we're seeing? Yes,
I think it just goes to show how the rise in yields that we've seen this affects people's and investors' perceptions of the safety of the banks, because a lot of these banks are holding treasuries, and of course the value of long-term treasuries and even short-term treasuries have come off so much in the last couple of years because the Fed has raised interest rates so far. They've gone from their balance sheets are crashing, and then these bonds back the liabilities that they have towards depositors, and depositors could get very worried, and that's what happened last year. And then that's why how I see it is the interest rate situation, the bond yield situation that are hurting the banks. So yeah, they're not out of the woods. Yesterday, the Fed FOMC statement that came out right after the decision, it took out the mention that the U.S. banking system was healthy. They had that in the previous meeting, and they stripped that out, which is interesting. But of course, during the press conference, none of those reporters there dared ask Jay Powell about the New York Community Bank Corp. I think if they had, they would have probably have been invited for the next FOMC.
Now, when it comes to what the Fed policy is right now, it seems like we just saw a pause in the interest rates, and they might cut coming in March or at least sometime this year. It's widely expected that they're going to be cutting rates. But the effect of holding rates higher for longer that the Fed has done, that sometimes has lagged effects, right? And so it doesn't mean if the Fed just starts cutting that we're out of the woods for the banking system.
That's right. That's right. I think they haven't changed rates for the last 4 meetings, so about 6 months. So this is right around the time that we should maybe be feeling something or seeing something, and maybe these tremors in the banking sector are just a harbinger of what could come. And as we speak today, I noticed that bond yields are down quite a bit today, and you have to kind of wonder if there's, if the Fed and what's it called again, the Exchange Stabilization Fund are out there trying to keep yields low because, as I said earlier, bond yields are really important, and also bond prices, of course, which are inversely related. So, yeah, interesting times. And the other thing that's in people's minds is the BTFP, which is going to be discontinued on March 11th. That recently has risen massively, and we'll have to wait until the end of the day today, which is Thursday as we speak, to see if it's probably risen again in the previous week. And also, yes, the fact that QE, not QE, but QT is something that people are thinking that the Fed might have to stop, seeing that they might cut rates this year. But Jay Powell tried to kind of dampen down expectations of a lot of rate cuts yesterday, but I don't think he knows really what's going to happen. He's just waiting for the data and see how well the economy is doing. And I think today we had some weak jobless claims numbers. They were a lot higher than expected, and I think that might be driving bond yields lower.
Now, as you mentioned, the BTFP will be ending on March 11th. Do you expect a reversal from the Fed here on that? Because it seems like that was really the program that kind of came to the rescue last year. And if we're starting to see bank problems again, it seems like how is the Fed going to paper over this situation once again?
Well, I think they announced back on the 17th of this month that they are going to discontinue it. But you never know. Like you said, that if things start getting worse in the banking sector, they could very well announce that they're going to extend that maybe for another 6 months instead of another year. But that will be taken. That will be taken as accommodative, I would say, for monetary policy, even though they'll come out and say this has got nothing to do with our monetary policy. We're still not cutting rates, but effectively it is like a rate cut.
I did want to get your latest thoughts on the safety of money in the bank, right? Obviously, we need some currency just to use in our daily transactions. But during the last year's banking crisis, a lot of people had concerns about holding large amounts of funds in the banking system because, if a bank goes under, then what happens to your funds? Your latest thoughts on that with these new developments?
Yes, I think people should be worried, especially people who have more than 250,000 in their bank accounts, and also corporations or any kind of institution that has over 250,000. Even though the Treasury basically bailed out the SVB depositors who were Silicon Valley billionaires, they had over 250,000. But I don't know if you remember, Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, she was testifying, I think it was in the Senate or it could have been in the House, but one of the congressmen from Oklahoma asked her, what if a small Oklahoma bank goes bust? Are you going to bail out the depositors that have over 250,000? And she didn't really say, oh yeah, definitely. She basically implied that it depends on what the Treasury, the Fed, and the White House think is what's best to do. So I think, people with a lot of funds, over 250,000 in the bank, I wouldn't be too comfortable about having that much. And even if we had a bigger systemic crisis, not just a few banks, but the whole system, I don't think the FDIC, well, it's not that I don't think, I'm sure the FDIC, they have a very small percentage of all the deposits that they claim to insure. So if it got bigger, the crisis, unless Congress decided to bail out all depositors, I'd be concerned. In the end of the day, what that says as well is that, the dollar will continue to be trashed because that's what's going to happen. Yes, maybe the 250,000 will be safe. Above 250,000 will be safe in a huge crisis because they'll bail everyone out. But if the crisis hasn't evolved yet, if we're going to see just one or two banks, I would be concerned, yes, to have too much in the bank right now.
We just had Peter Schiff on last week, and he was saying that, the situation right now is either you lose your deposits or your deposits lose value. And I thought that was a fantastic, succinct way to put it there is, what about the value of the dollar? Even if these banks are bailed out, then what does that mean for the value of the dollar? I think that's really an important point there. Now, you've talked about on your channel, I know you had John Rubino on to talk about the Texas border crisis. And it seems like when we have a financial system that is based off of lies and based off of cheating in some respect, right? You have a fake monetary system where the Fed can just create as much money as they want. Then you have lies and cheating kind of entering into a lot of different areas of the system. So you've talked about this kind of as an end of empire sign. Your perspective on the Texas border crisis and how is it tied into what is happening in the financial system right now?
Yes, I mean, I've spoken over the years about the fact that when currencies die, seeing that currencies are like half of all commercial transaction everyone does. If the currency is dying, things are going to get topsy-turvy. As for the border crisis, yes, that's part of it as well. And it has to do with the finances because Congress, especially the Republicans, they're tired of financing other countries and not looking after America's border. And I think that's what it's all to do with the Ukraine, this southern border problem, Texas border problem, aside from the fact that I think it's all to do with the plan of the globalists to flood not just the United States, but the UK as well, Europe, with people from other countries to dilute our culture. But yeah, so the Republicans are saying to the administration, yes, we will think about sending more money to Zelensky, but first you have to fix the border. You have to stop these people coming through the border. So yes, it's always about the money, and it gets even worse when the currency is on its last legs.
It seems so weird because it seems like also words are being twisted as well, where there's this sense of like, we have to have obviously compassion for the immigrant, which I think is very valid. But then to say that we don't even have to abide by the nation's laws and stuff like that, it just is so incoherent. It's like, well, we want to help people in ways that we can, but we want to do that legally. And maybe laws have to change. But this whole sense of just we don't have to abide by laws is just so incoherent in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an immigrant. I came to the UK in 1992, but I have an Italian passport. So at the time, the UK was still part of the EU, so I could move here legally. I have a niece that she married an American, and she moved to the States in 2014, and she had to go through the whole green card process. I think she had to pay $15,000 for that green card. It's not that I'm against immigrants. It's just that they're doing it illegally. And the thing is, you'd think that the purpose of the federal government, one of the purposes would be to safeguard the national borders. And it seems like they're doing the opposite. They're encouraging illegals to come through the border. And it's not fair on the people who do it, who go to the U.S. legally.
No, you've stated recently in one of your videos that maybe it's a better situation for kind of the whole system to come crashing down in the West so we can rebuild it instead of trying to fix it. Mentioning immigration here, I know living in the UK, you experienced Brexit, and a big reason why the UK broke away from the European Union was because of immigration. So I guess that is kind of a solution they found. In your perspective, do you think that was something that actually fixed a problem, or are the problems just seeming to be worse even now?
Yeah, I don't think the problems have been resolved. Yes, we might not have immigration from EU countries as much as we had because they're not free to move, but the refugees that are coming through that have, the illegal immigrants, they're not even from the EU. And if you go back to the Brexit referendum, I think the establishment, they called that referendum just to put an end to the discussion about leaving the EU, because it wasn't just immigration. It was because people wanted to have the laws of this country decided in the Parliament of the UK, not by bureaucrats in Belgium. That was part of it as well. So I think when Prime Minister David Cameron called for the referendum, no one expected for the British to vote it through, to vote yes to leave. So that was a big shock. And so, no, the immigration problem hasn't been solved. And if anything, it's worse. And they're doing kind of the same thing here. The people always mention the fact that the UK was able to stop Hitler from invading Britain, but it can't stop these people coming on rubber dinghies.
And then if we could get your perspective on, is it better for kind of the whole system to come crashing down in a sense than to rebuild it? I mean, I feel like that phrasing might be used in a negative sense, but maybe the perspective we can look at it is we need to reclaim our own sovereignty on a local level, and also, in our families and in our communities on a state level, right, as well. And these sort of large government organizations that are failing us need to come crashing down. Your perspective on that, kind of as we're seeing as you've put it, kind of the end of the financial system, the end of the dollar. What is the solution coming out of that?
I agree with you about trying to get a grassroots movement through your local community, through your county or state. I think the U.S. is a lot more decentralized, for example, than the U.K., but these big institutions out there, be it the federal government, be it the UN or the WHO or World Economic Forum, one of the reasons they have so much power is that they've got access to the funny money from the central banks. So if the system were to collapse, the monetary system were to collapse, they wouldn't have the funding anymore. And I think that's great. And that's why I keep telling people that, yes, you need to get out of the system, buy physical gold and silver, build a community, be close to your neighbors, because, I don't think the people in charge want to make things better for us. So that's the only way I see things changing, that the whole system, the monetary system, implodes. And I don't think that's far-fetched, because we haven't seen any fiat currency system last forever. They always go to zero.
Now, you recently made a video saying how to cope with the collapse of the US dollar. There were a few points I wanted to touch on here. We mentioned community, how really responsibility starts in the family and then it moves out to the community. Your perspective on, first, I guess one of the key things also is to maybe keep a low profile, and maybe that ties into looking at things on a local level, not trying to save the world, but your perspective on keeping a low profile as this all comes down.
Yeah, I spoke about being low key, and I think that's important because, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be suffering when this happens. And you don't want to be flashing your wealth around if you have a lot of wealth, or if you don't, I think if you survive and you have something in what's coming, you're going to look a lot better than a lot of people. So you need to keep a low profile, low key. What does that mean? Well, it means not buying the flash cars or all this kind of stuff, not wearing, the fancy watch or whatever, and just keeping a low profile, not bragging and stuff like that, I would say.
When it comes to having a budget, you made some comments on that, and I think it's very important, especially when there's hard times financially, to really keep a good eye on your finances.
Yeah, I mean, I never had a budget until I got married, and then my wife and I, and then we had a child, and we started looking, at the budget. We needed to know what we had coming in as income, and what were our outgoings. And outgoings, for example, that you can't get rid of are your utilities, your food, shelter, be it through rent or mortgage. I had a mortgage once. So yeah, if you know the numbers well, what's going on with your income and your outgoings, you'll be able to cope better. And if you know what's on your budget list, if things get worse, you will know what to eliminate. And yeah, and the point of having a budget is that you can keep track of what's going on, and maybe even have a surplus at the end of the month, so you can accumulate some, not necessarily buy gold and silver, but have something for a rainy day, be it fiat. And if those savings increase, then you might start thinking about maybe getting some silver and then gold and so on. I'm not telling people that they should borrow and buy gold and silver. You have to do it organically, I would say.
Another point you made was avoiding the mainstream media, which I think is very important there, because it seems like there's a lot of propaganda that comes out. When we have a crisis, the government comes in with a solution, and often the media is backing it. But often that solution takes away a lot of our liberties. So avoiding the mainstream media and going to more independent sources seems to be a way maybe to protect not only your finances, but also your liberty. Your perspective on that?
Yeah, and your sanity as well. I mean, here in the UK, we have something called a TV license that you have to pay to the BBC. They don't call it a tax, but it is. But we haven't paid it since 2015 because we don't have a TV. So things like that. Yeah. And have you noticed sometimes when there's a crisis, I think I've seen the clip, but you've probably seen it. All the channels, different TV stations, they basically have a script, and they say exactly the same thing. So yeah, avoid the mainstream media. I remember over 30 years ago, a friend of my sister, and he worked on Wall Street at the time already, and he told me, I'll never watch TV. And I thought, what's he talking about? I just wish I had listened to him back then. But yeah, keep away from the mainstream media. I guess sometimes you will catch a glimpse of it. And even if you do watch a bit or read a bit from the mainstream media, always try to ask questions. Don't take what they write or say as gospel. That's what I would say.
One of the last points you made was, we can kind of get caught up in the noise, right? And it's important to have a hobby, have something to turn to not just be paying attention to a lot of things that we can't really control at the end of the day. Your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you need to get out there. And I think it was Walter Hagen, golfer, who said you have to get out and, smell the flowers. You can't just stay cooped in your house and watching what's going on the computer. Yeah, so yeah, have a hobby, whatever it may be. Yeah, you have to clear your head sometimes and switch off from all the topsy-turvy and all the chaos that seems to be going on in the world.
And if our viewers are interested in learning more, they can go to your YouTube channel, Innecco64. Did you want to share where else people can find you?
Yes, I'm on X or Twitter at Innecco1964 is my handle there. Yeah, so that's where I am really. I'm also on LinkedIn, Mario Innecco. If you're in LinkedIn, you can look it up there. It's INNECCO. Fantastic.
Any last thoughts before I let you go, Mario?
Yeah, just don't let all the chaos that seems to be out there get to you. yeah, just keep doing your own thing and try not to buy into the fear mongering from the establishment and the mainstream media.
All right, Mario, once again, thank you so much for your time, and God bless.
You're welcome.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for January 29th through February 5th, 2024, while supplies last. This week we have silver Valcambi or Asahi 100-ounce bars at just $1.39 over spot per ounce. We also feature pre-1933 gold $10 and $20 Liberties at $89 over melt and $139 over melt, respectively. Next, backdated 1-ounce silver maples are at $3.75 over spot with a minimum order of 50. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.